I've got to go home and change all my pipes. I don't have time to talk to you anymore. I've got to go pull the pipes out of my house. Ah,
NRDC actually did a report that shows that more than 18 million people get their drinking water from a water system that violated the federal regulations on lead.
Why do we not want lead in our body, even though I have a feeling I shouldn't want lead in my body, but can you explain?
Sure. I think the simplest way to say it is that lead can devastate your brain. It's what's called a neurotoxin, and it's extremely dangerous at very low levels. There's actually no safe amount of lead exposure for anyone, and it's particularly dangerous to small children and developing fetuses. So we're very worried about pregnant women and young children ingesting water with lead or being exposed to lead through soil or paint, for example. Really, when you think about the effect of lead on children, it impedes their ability to learn and to be successful in life. And so when you think about what's happened, for example, in Flint, there's a generation of children there that was exposed to lead in their drinking water that may have learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities, behavioral problems because of that lead exposure. So it's really important that we protect ourselves from even small amounts of lead in our drinking water.
Once it's in your system, can you get it out of your system? Like, can you drink a bunch of lead-free water and flush it out?
Unfortunately, you can't. It doesn't really work that way. It kind of gets into your blood and it stays there for a while, and it gets stored in your body, and it can be released at different times in your life. So it's pretty scary stuff. Especially in poor neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods, areas that have older houses, you have a real risk of exposure from lead pipes and the release of lead into your drinking water.
And are we talking about, not to get too much into the minutiae of this, but are we talking about pipes that are in your house, or we're talking about pipes that are coming down the street towards your house, or all of the above?
That's a great question, because it can be both. So there's two main sources of lead in a home with regards to drinking water. So you can have what's called a lead service line that runs from the water main in the street into your home. And in a lot of old homes, as I said, that's made of lead. You can also have interior lead plumbing. So they could have used lead inside your home to run through the walls and run up to your bathrooms and into your kitchen. And either of those can be a source of lead exposure. And the kicker is when there's a problem with the water treatment. So what happened in a place like Flint, or what happened in a place like Newark, is that a decision was made to not treat the water properly to control for the release of lead from lead pipes.
So there is a treatment for lead pipes? You don't have to necessarily replace them? You do give some sort of treatment to the water, or not?
So it's like a lot of things that are, you can treat the water to control for lead release. A lot of water systems do that. But there's only one permanent fix to get lead out of your drinking water, and that's to get the pipes out of the ground.
Yeah, that sounds like a better idea to me.
It is a better idea. But it's a complicated thing to do in some instances, because it's expensive. It's not free to just pull your lead pipe out of the ground for most people.
Are all pipes lead pipes, or at a certain point lead pipes became a certain other kind of pipe that's better?
In 1986, lead pipes were banned. The practice now is to use copper pipes instead, because copper pipes pose less of a risk to health.
Uh-oh, you just said less. Do you really mean less?
I do mean less.
I'm never drinking water again.
I know. I can't say no risk, actually.
How does a drinking water crisis like this happen in Flint?
In Flint, the state had taken over the city and the management of the city because the city was in financial distress. And so the state, basically, of Michigan was running the city of Flint, and in that time made a decision to change the drinking water source. Originally, Flint had been getting its drinking water from Detroit and basically purchasing treated, finished water from Detroit and pumping it through its pipes to give to its customers. There was a decision made to stop doing that and to start pulling water from a river. This decision was made to save money, and it was made even though Flint had never treated its own water before.
So this strikes me as very reckless. And I'm not an attorney, but that strikes me as almost inhumane. But anyway, carry on with this amazing story.
It was an extremely poor idea, especially because the officials who made this decision did not treat the water to control for lead release. So there are laws that say that the water has to be treated in a certain way, and it wasn't. And so this water was basically flowing through the pipes in Flint and flowing into people's taps. And
so they were doing it unlawfully to begin with. Is that what you're saying?
There's a law called the Safe Drinking Water Act, which is the federal law that protects our drinking water. And that law says that all water systems need to do certain things to try to control for the release of lead from lead pipes. In Flint, they did not take those measures. And Flint's not alone, which is the scary thing about this. There are cities all over the country that aren't following the regulations to control for lead in drinking water.
And is the federal government doing nothing to police this, I'm assuming?
There's a lot more that the government can be doing, both in terms of making the law stronger, but also in enforcing the law in situations like what we saw in Flint, Michigan, and what we were seeing in Newark, New Jersey, where there's a violation of the law, there are people who are being harmed, and there's not enough action.
Are all already sort of marginalized communities, I don't know, do you call them EJ?
Yes, environmental justice communities. That's right.
Are they the ones that are most in peril under these circumstances, or what?
An environmental justice community is a community that bears a disproportionate share of environmental burdens. And those communities typically are communities of color and low-income communities all around the country. So that means they have more polluting facilities, less safe water, a whole host of different environmental burdens, and often other burdens, which are kind of compounding the crises in those communities.
And in other words, they've got a port near them, or there's an industrial waste facility near them. Is that kind of thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a bus depot or something like that, something that will emit pollution
into the air,
into the air, and exacerbate asthma, create different types of health situations. When you think about drinking water, you think about lead in water and environmental justice communities. You can think about kind of the history of redlining and the disinvestment in schools and in disinvestment in healthcare in poor communities and communities of color, in particular, Black and brown communities. And you see how that creates a situation where those folks are more likely to live in older homes that have lead pipes.
So it sounds very doom and gloomy. I'm listening to this as an average citizen, and I'm thinking, well, what hope can we give people here? What can a certain person do? Get the filter for your house, absolutely, but what else can they do in addition to that?
So there's lots you can do to protect yourself. It's not all doom and gloom. One is try to figure out if you have a lead service line. 2 is to get a filter that's certified to remove lead installed in your home. And 3 is, if you can, to get your lead pipes replaced. You can also go to NRDC's website. We have an interactive map that can show you whether your water system has violated federal standards for drinking water.
Oh, really?
And so you can go to that map, and you can also check out, has my water system violated the law lately?
Got it. Somebody bring me a computer immediately.
And educate yourself in that way too. You can get your water tested and try to find out what's in your drinking water at home. In communities like Flint and Newark and Pittsburgh, NRDC partners with people on the ground who are really at the front lines of effectuating change. Like, they are the ones who are fighting for themselves and for their families. They are, talking to their local elected officials. They're talking to their water utilities. They're forming local groups to try to get answers to the questions that they have and try to raise awareness about these issues. And you can join those groups, or you can be an ally to other communities. If you see something that's, disturbing to you or troubling to you, like what happened in Flint, you can try to support those groups as well. And groups like NRDC are obviously working hard to make sure that our drinking water is safer.
I've got to go home and change all my pipes. I don't have time to talk to you anymore. I've got to go pull the pipes out of my house.
Thank you so much. I hope that was okay. I hope I didn't scare you too much.
No.